Welcome to Griffin's Gaming Guides. In this video we're going after a Grid Legends DLC pack for Winter Bash Trophy. What do you mean drift? We need to score at least 1,000,000 points at Okutama Sprint Drift Stage full route. Now there's no way of getting around this. This is a rough, harsh trophy to unlock. The main problem I found is there is no specific vehicle that you can use, and the freedom that brought me got in my head and it made it a lot harder than perhaps it should have been. Now in the end I found the Subaru BRZ Drift Tune the best car for the job, as it's powerful, agile and can drift on a dime, so to speak. So you might find it a lot easier to complete it as well if you turn off both traction and stability controls, which can be done by going to the main menu, options, difficulty, then turn both traction control and stability down to 0 and then apply the settings. Now in order to set the event up with the correct settings, go from the main menu to race creator, set the discipline as drift, set the class to clubman drift if you want to use the same car that I did. If you want to do a different car, you do you, but the location has to be Okutama Sprint and the route has to be Drift Stage full route. Now just before you begin the event, go into the handling menu, which you can do by pressing square before beginning the event, and move the sliders in the vehicle tuning to the following. You want to set the gear ratio, springs, dampers and anti-roll bars all the way to the left, and then the brake bias either 1 or 2 notches to the left, depending on how often you want to brake rather than handbrake. If you're more of a braker than a handbraker, set it 1 notch to the left. If you're more of a handbraker than a braker, then set it all the way to the left. Then you can go off and begin the event, and then get ready for a tough, long, arduous challenge. Now the circuit is tough enough to get around in a circuit event. However, drifting around the 4.02 mile elevation changing, tight cornering, tunnel racing, drifter's nightmare that the Okutama Sprint is whilst achieving a score of over 1,000,000 is a really tall order. However, it is also very doable with the right kind of discipline and knowing what you need to do. Now the key to getting this done is the multiplier that you receive for chaining drifts together. Now you will get a multiplier for every drift that has a break in between it rather than for a continuous drift. So drift, race all the way around the circuit, which is so much easier said than it is done. The main problem with doing a guide for drifting is a skill. It's not something I can sit here and tell you what to do. I can tell you what buttons to press, I can tell you kind of what I did, I can show you what I did, but unless you've got the kind of knack of drifting as you make your way around the circuit, it's going to be a difficult one. You're going to have to learn, and probably what makes this a little bit more difficult is that the Grid Legends developers aren't too sure on what actually constitutes a drift. They seem to think that power sliding is more of a drift. So every time you go around a corner, either tap the brake or tap the handbrake, which goes back to adjusting the brake bars like I mentioned about a minute ago. That way you can be able to go around the corner and it will count as a drift 99% of the time. If you try and play this one like most other games where you just kind of flick the arse of the car out and then speed around the corner, that won't actually count 99% of the time. It is a bit of a tricky one to get used to. You're going to have to kind of relearn how to drift in a video game and then reapply those new skills that you've just found into Grid Legends. Now you need to make the orange circle that appears whenever you drift your main priority to keep that as full as you can, as that constitutes your multiplier as well as your drift meter. Now keep that circle mostly full and you stand a much better chance of achieving the score whilst chaining your drifts together. As you can see on screen here, we've got a times 6, we'll flick it around to the right, a little tap of handbrake, we've now got a times 7, race down again, little corner, quick flick of the handbrake, times 8, again times 9, 10, 11 and really work on racking that multiplier up whilst you're getting your score. You can hold the handbrake or tap the brake when on a straight and angle the car hard at speed to do a quick power slide, which will usually count as a drift. Now this won't score you many points, but it will keep that all important multiplier up and it will keep your little orange circle hopefully over halfway full, allowing you to get to your next corner where you can then do a proper drift around that corner, racking up some decent points along the way. Now, the kind of bad thing about this one, if you touch the sides of the circuit, you will not only lose your multiplier, but you'll also lose any unbanked score, meaning that you have to be more and more careful and controlled the higher your multiplier score goes, meaning you will have a much higher loss if you just even clip a bollard, touch the sides of the circuit, or if you spin out. Anything that isn't banked, your banked score, by the way, is on the right side of the screen. You can see mine now, 297,538, and obviously we're still racking up the score. When I stop my chain drift, providing I don't crash, that will then get added to my banked score. So take your time and be patient. It will take you a good few attempts to get this done more than likely. Then eventually everything will click and work where you will achieve a score of 1,000,000 plus, earning your trophy in the process. And probably another quick bit of advice I'll give you, if you do kind of mess up towards the start, or if you've lost a score that isn't that high, don't bother restarting. It would probably be better for you to work your way through the circuit and then learn some of the corners. I messed up so many times. I must have done this probably 50 times before I finally got my score, which we're going to see in a minute when I cross the finishing line. But taking the time to learn every corner and the angle, this one here messed me up quite a lot. So we got kind of a quick sweep in left, straight into a right that tightens up quite a lot. I kept hitting the sides on this one. I kept bouncing off the left wall. There must be dents in that thing like no one's business. But then you kind of learn the angle of your car and the speed going in. You will get much better at it. Now coming down the straight, you got a couple of quick lefts and a couple of quick rights. Now to me, it wasn't really worth trying to drift. If you can get a couple of points or get a drift meter going, fantastic. If you can't, it's not going to be the end of the world, as they're such long corners. Drifting around them and not touching the sides can be a bit of a tricky one, especially if you're trying to chain as you're going into this tunnel, as it does tighten up considerably. And you'd be amazed as well, if you actually drive around the circuit as a circuit, there's so many kind of little bits that you can get. I used to take this straight, but now I can see that there's a little opportunity to get a drift here, little opportunity to get a drift there, and then being able to drift around this corner at a much greater speed and angle than I was previously by just trying to gun it to the next corner. Make sure that you take every opportunity and use the width of the road to do a quick power slide and just keep that meter going as best as you can. Now this last series of hairpin turns is where you can really rack up some points, providing you're controlled. For me, it's the easiest section in the entire circuit, as it's kind of wide sweeping corners. The exits are nice and wide, allowing you to really angle the car around at a decent speed, and providing on the couple of little straights that there are, you do a little power slide. If you're about to run out of drift meter and avoid the sides as best as you can easily rack up a good 300,000 or 400,000 points just by doing this last section with a heavy amount of control. But like I said earlier on, it is all about personal skill. There's no kind of technique I can teach you. You just need to get out there and learn how to drift the car. Like I said, for me, I went for the Subaru BRZ, as all of the other cars, including the new Viper, just felt either too long, too slow, not powerful enough, or in the Viper's case, far too powerful, where I kept kind of bouncing off the sides. It was more like a pinball than a drifter. So that said, I do wish you the very best of luck in getting this one done. If you do need any other trophies for Grid Legends DLC Pack 4 Winter Bash or the main game, I'll leave both links down below, just below the like button. Very best of luck getting it done, and we do look forward to seeing you back here at Griffin's Gaming Guides. 1.1 million. Yes.